New Year, same Trump, exploiting a tragedy for political gain.
As expected, President Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump responding quite differently to this attack in New Orleans. President Joe Biden addressed the nation from Camp David. He said that he is grieving with New Orleans, that the nation is grieving with New Orleans. Trump also yesterday morning seemed to suggest that the attacker from New Orleans was not a U.S. citizen, implying that the suspect was foreign-born.
Elect Donald Trump put out a statement on social media earlier today that reads as follows. When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats. Now, the former president said criminals coming in his statement, meaning into our country. But to be clear, Molly and Brian, the suspect was born in the United States.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
After the terrorist attack that killed 15 and injured dozens in New Orleans, President-elect Donald Trump and his fellow sycophants were swift to push misinformation and blame the attack committed by a US-born citizen and Army veteran on someone allegedly coming across the southern border. And what transpired was the worst and, well, the worst from the ever so erroneous Fox News. First, incorrectly asserting that the truck driven by the suspect had crossed the Texas border from Mexico 2 days before the attack.
David Spunt, he and R. Griff Jenkins are able to report that the suspect drove a truck with a Texas license plate that came through Eagle Pass, Texas 2 days ago. David, what else do you know about this vehicle?
So we're hearing that the vehicle was traced to coming across from Mexico into the United States at Eagle Pass, Texas 2 days ago. To be clear, we don't 100% know that this man, and we do know the suspect is a man, was the person driving that crossed the border. That is unclear at this point. We just know that the actual license plate was picked up by a reader at a border crossing. This is per two federal law enforcement sources. The other thing that's not entirely clear right now is the status, the immigration status of this driver. We have heard, though, from President-elect Trump, who's going to move in here in just a few weeks. He put out a statement that says, quote, when I said the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this pure act of evil.
Which, after it was disproven, they performed some Olympic-level verbal gymnastics.
So we're getting some breaking news right now into our newsroom. I want to alert our viewers. Our sources now tell Fox that that truck from Eagle Pass, Texas, did not cross 2 days ago. It crossed on November 16th, and the identification of the driver that crossed the border does not appear to be the shooter.
Talk about the particular truck that was used in this. We know that it was a rental. We know that it was brought from Texas and it was spotted in Eagle Pass, Texas back on November 19th. But we understand that the truck does have a history of plate readers. It never actually passed through from Mexico into Eagle Pass. However, the license plate on this truck has a history of plate readers at the border in patterns, and I'm quoting, that may be suspicious for human smuggling. When this story first broke, a lot of people wanted to know the identity of the suspect. When you hear human smuggling, you think about the border, and the border has obviously been such a dangerous, ignored problem for this country, with so many of these sleeper cells and terrorists who want to harm Americans illegally crossing our borders. What part of that most alarms you?
Only to then offer a perfect soapbox for the MAGA contingent to blatantly lie free from pushback.
And let me say something else that's obvious, and I don't know if enough attention is being paid to this, but we all know that for the last 4 years, the Biden administration has been completely derelict in its duty. The congressional Republicans, we here in the House and the Senate, have repeatedly asked the DHS under the Biden administration about the correlation, the obvious concern about terrorism and the wide open border. The idea that dangerous people were coming here in droves and setting up potentially terrorist cells around the country.
I agree with them. So we're not out of the woods. This country's in grave danger. We need to secure that border. And despite what's happened the last 2 days in Las Vegas and in New Orleans, this administration is not stopping. They're still releasing thousands of people every week through the CBP-1 app, the CHMB program, and Border Patrol continues to release people in this country without proper vetting. This is not a good thing, and I can't wait for the new administration to take power and secure this border and protect our national security.
Well, the police chief was asked about the incident in Las Vegas, if they had seen any motivation and inspiration from any terror group. They had not identified anything there yet, I should say, at least. They said they're very heavily still in the middle of that investigation.
However, after enough damage was done, it appears that the message soon spread throughout that, yeah, maybe this wasn't the best idea. And while their fearless cult leader continued to perpetuate more lies and disinformation, saying, quote, "Our country is a disaster, a laughingstock all over the world. This is what happens when you have, capital letters, open borders, weak, ineffective, and virtually non-existent leadership. DOJ, FBI, and Democrat state and local prosecutors have not done their job." Before soon showing empathy to the true victim of the attack that claimed the lives of 15 Americans, himself, saying they are, quote, "competent and corrupt, having spent all their waking hours unlawfully attacking their political opponent," capital letters, me. Well, even this appears to be a step too far for Fox News. They opted to fact-check him on his gross assertions.
Elect Donald Trump put out a statement on social media earlier today that reads as follows. "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil." Now, the former president said criminals coming in a statement, meaning into our country. But to be clear, Molly and Brian, the suspect was born in the United States. He served in the United States Army. He was a veteran. The FBI is the lead agency in this investigation, going through the social media and any other accounts associated with the suspect. But that key bulletin right there by the Louisiana...
Well, better late than, well, who am I kidding? They could not give two shits about whether Trump or any host on the network is spreading lies regarding the southern border. It's all minutia to them, as long as they rile up enough of their base. But the thing is, as Jim Acosta said in response on CNN, there are real-world dangerous consequences to this level of demonization, this hateful rhetoric that has radicalized people in the country in the past to commit further acts of terror based on said lies.
Drive into a Walmart in El Paso and start shooting Mexicans because they think that Mexicans are invading the country. This is where something like this starts.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, this is a problem, and you were saying a few moments ago you can't take him literally. Why shouldn't you take the president of the United States literally? Isn't that sort of a baseline expectation that he should stick to the facts?
I think, look, in this particular instance, and I didn't see the exact language he used in the True Social post, I don't think he was saying that this individual crossed illegally, or if he was, it was based on initial reporting that was incorrect, that somebody had crossed at Eagle Pass. We can show it up on screen again. I mean, he's talking about but he has a valid point.
He's blaming Biden's open borders policy.
And again,
he's talking about that on True Social. I mean,
but does he tie it directly to this particular?
When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. Not in this case.
Not in this case.
What he is saying in that Truth Social post is false. That is false.
He's not saying that this individual crossed the border illegally, right, but there were 400 people on the terrorist watch list.
Of course, but when there's an act of terrorism in this country, the incoming president should tell the truth to the American people. I mean, that is just... Isn't that what the president should do at all times?
He's talking about securing the border, and he's been talking for years about securing the border, and he believes, and I think the data bears out that he won the election partially because.
Well, I mean, I just have to say, here he goes again. He talks about everybody else being fake news, and he's the one peddling fake news. But
it's typical Trump. He'll use this tragedy to detract attention from the fact that he's admittedly already going against the will of his base regarding visas as he cows to the will of Elon Musk, which, as we witnessed, sparked a MAGA exodus.
Nobody knows the system better than me. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me. I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers.
As we speak, we're finalizing H-1B regulations so that no American worker is replaced ever again. H-1Bs should be used for top, highly paid talent to create American jobs, not as inexpensive labor program to destroy American jobs.
Why did you change your mind on H-1B visas, sir?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need
need smart people coming into our country, and we need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your...
When the Republican Party says they're taking our jobs, and then you have the president of the United States coming in, the president-elect Donald Trump, who is a Republican, saying, yeah, I agree with you. They are taking your jobs and they shouldn't.
That's
and
not
then Elon calls them up and basically says, no, you do like this.
You're totally right. And think of the irony here, Rachel. They shipped all their good manufacturing jobs overseas and said, we'll teach them to code. Now it turns out, no, actually, we're going to import people to do the coding.
So when the opportunity presents itself to demonize black and brown folk as a means to reunite all the bigots, he grabs it with both hands.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.